esports needs careful people, and we need personable people, and we need creative people. But you got to find you. You got to find what you are good at. What do you bring? Don't try to pretend like you're someone you're not. Don't try to pretend you're the personable this guy if you're not. Don't try to pretend you're the creative girl if you're not. Find what you are good at, and then say, how can I help esports?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of the Esports Careers Podcast, the show where I bring on the people behind the scenes of the esports industry and talk to them about their life, career, and journey into esports. I'm your host, Drew Proctor, and on today's episode, I brought on Nick D'Orazio, the Director of Corporate Strategy for Inven Global. We discuss what Nick does as the Director of Corporate Strategy, his path into the esports industry, and his biggest tips on how you can get a job in esports. So let's hop into today's episode. So your name is Nick D'Orazio. You work for Inven Global.
Yes, Inven Global. Inven Global. Have you heard of us?
I have only heard about you guys kind of recently, maybe 2 months ago.
Yeah, so Inven Global has definitely been longer than 2 months we've been on the block. So esports started in South Korea, and then there was Inven putting on tournaments before Riot was even putting on tournaments. Did you know that Inven put on the first League of Legends tournament before League of Legends esports even existed?
I did not.
Yeah, it's crazy how long Inven has been doing this. So much so that they got so much attention from the West, they said, you know what, we're going to create a North American website, Inven Global. And that's us. We're the North American side of Inven.
So in South Korea, is it just Inven?
Inven.co.kr.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then Inven Global is our English site. Everything is in English and not Korean.
I guess what I picked up is that Inven Global is an esports news company, and that you guys write articles and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, so we do pretty much everything. We actually do tons more of esports business. One of the things people quickly learn about the esports industry is that revenue is tight. So very few people can make money just making content, just making news, because then you just sell ads. It becomes a pretty linear business model, pretty easy to disrupt, especially when esports consumers decide they don't like to buy things, which is true. Esports audiences don't buy anything. So yeah, we do esports news. We produce tournaments. We produce world championships. We do consulting. I do all sorts of esports consulting. I consult with investment people. I consult for banks sometimes. If someone wants to learn about esports investment, about esports business, I'm the guy that they talk to. On top of that, we have our content team around the world, South Korea, Europe, US. We're always making articles, always covering stuff. We do breaking news. We cover big stories that are sometimes on the world stage. We're pretty proud about the Blitzkrieg story and the Hong Kong protest. Inven Global actually broke that story. Our guys were on every news channel you can think of. So when it comes to, esports news, it is definitely our main thing. But we've also recently, maybe in the past 3 years, we've been really invested into the esports industry, into the corporate side of things, into helping people network, into putting on our esports conference events. We do esports summits, financial summits. I actually just got off a panel that I hosted, the Inven Global Esports Conference 2020. We've done 15 panels so far in amidst this COVID pivot we're in at the time of this recording. So yeah, Inven Global is not only a media company, we do much more.
Yeah, I actually, now that you said the Hong Kong stuff and with Blizzard, I actually think that was probably the first I heard of Inven Global. Now that you say it, which was what? Yeah. When was that? In October, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds about right. That was near BlizzCon, and yeah, it was definitely a big boom, right? Though that's kind of what you expect when you have a story that big. To be honest, it was just the fact that our guy was there live at the tournament and he saw the whole thing happen. So that's why he was there. He was watching it live. That's why he was the first one to do it. And not only was he watching it live, but he was paying attention. Hallmark of Inven, a global staff. We actually care about this stuff. You would be surprised how many esports content creators do not care about esports. And, it's just not their interest. But they love video games and they love money, so they think they're in the right place. And they're not. which is why I'm glad your podcast exists, right? We're trying to give people some solid esports career advice here.
Right.
So, what type of advice do you think your listeners would want to hear about?
Well, what's your job title? What do you do at Inven Global?
I am the director of corporate strategy. I've been an esports journalist for some time. I think I already mentioned that. Or have I not? Have I said what I do?
I think, well, yeah, kind of give me a rundown of who
Yeah,
you
okay.
are, what you do, how you've gotten into this scene, anything you want to tell about that.
I was born in a big family, all girls. I was the only boy. All of us were gamers, though. My father was a hardcore gamer. My mother was a hardcore gamer. They loved video games together. So I was always born a gamer. And I was just the one in my family to take it the most seriously, to enjoy the more competitive games. I love fighting games the most. And I would really, really love learning the combos and learning the intricacies and all those things. And then I remember when I started realizing that tournaments existed. So I started competing in Street Fighter and Super Smash Brothers and Warcraft 3. These were the esports that used to be the biggest in the world, believe it or not. This was back when StarCraft was esports. And, I played StarCraft, and I guess started as a content creator. I would be a caster, a commentator. I would do really, really old style audio commentaries. Do you know anything about audio commentaries?
No, not at all.
So let me blow your mind. Back in the day, we would watch a replay of the game, and then we would record ourselves talking about the game as we watch it. We would then tell our listeners to download the replay and download the audio file. Then they had to play the audio file and then play the replay. And I would say, all right, everyone, 3, 2, 1, unpause. And then they would unpause their replay synced up to ours. And then we would have they'd have live commentary as they watch.
What year is all this going on?
I mean, this is 2005. This is 2005, 2006. Yeah, it was a wild time. But that's how we did it back then. I was there when streaming first happened. It was the fighting game community. People don't know that. They were the innovators of streaming pretty much anywhere in gaming. The people who streamed fighting games were like mad scientists. We can't believe we're watching this stuff live. And now it's like the largest new media in the world. So shout outs to esports. We've always been doing our own thing. And I started going to school then, but I started loving to write. So I just wrote a blog about games. I wrote about video games. I wrote about esports. I wrote about girls. I wrote about relationships. I wrote poems. It was just whatever. The internet was different back then, way more free than people realize it was. And I just wrote about anything I wanted to. One day I submitted some of my articles to my favorite online magazine, got accepted because they were good. And I just never looked back. I've just been writing content, and I did that for about 8 years as I was also working just in Hollywood to pay the bills. So I'd produce some films. I would edit a lot of stuff. I would just work. But esports writing was always the thing. A lot of people don't realize that the concept of an esports job is so new. Career in esports, like, forget about it. I almost think that this podcast title is almost a joke because esports careers it's not there. What do you mean career? Like, we're not there yet. But I guess from this perspective, it is, because you guys see people in the industry with jobs and salaries and titles, and you see multi-billion-dollar companies, and you see Amazon releasing Crucible, which is one of the worst games ever released, and this is what you see, and it's incredible. It's just not something that I ever thought would happen. So my job now is director of corporate strategy. That pretty much translates to, oh, I've seen all of this before. Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yep, seen that. I've done that before. Yeah, I know how to do this. I know how to put on this tournament. I just know a lot about esports because a lot of people think this industry is new. It's not. It just hasn't been big for so long.
Yeah, and it's well, I wouldn't say it's new, but kind of new-ish, like media-wise to North America. I mean, it's been
for sure.
In South America, esports has been around since what, early 90s, late 80s maybe?
So it's the same in the US, right? Like, esports has always existed, right? There's always been people playing in the arcades. There's always been people playing that, but like no one did it for money. I wasn't playing for money. People weren't competing for money. People weren't competing. Like, social media didn't exist. You had to watch videos on VHS, and that would be the tournament. Like, you're watching a video someone ripped, and great, you get to watch competitive Mortal Kombat 2, which is already an oxymoron, because why would anyone take that game so seriously, right? So it's really important, I think, to make the distinction. The esports industry is built around a consumer base. So there's this new base of consumers who want esports entertainment. That's what esports is. Competitive gaming has always existed. I've always wanted to win, and there's always been tournaments. But that consumer base, that was created in South Korea, full stop. Like, the people who would pay to enter a stadium and watch, the people who would pay for a class to teach you how to get good at StarCraft, the people who would pay for a coach, pay for an autograph, pay for a jersey, all of that started in South Korea.
And so South Korea kind of pioneered the way of I guess marketing esports, right?
Well, no, they pioneered the concept of competitive gaming. So, like, the concept that these are athletes that should be on a stage, that was their idea. Every time we tried to have that idea, it wasn't at the scope. And it comes from a cultural background, right? Gamers in South Korea were much more respected than gamers in the US. So when you have the idea of a tournament in South Korea, perhaps your first instinct is technology, the internet, expensive new age tech, right? Maybe that's your first idea. But if you think back in that same time period in the US, you think a video game tournament, you think your basement, like mom's basement. And that very much was the venue. It was a completely different shift. It was a completely different concept. And it's why still to this day, South Korea enjoys the most computer literacy and internet connectivity speeds of any populace. It's because they have set the infrastructure far, far in advance. So if you want to start looking at like markets and like revenue models, you really look to South Korea to see, okay, how have people traditionally done it? How have you gotten people to part with their money because someone is good at a video game? And just like, make no mistakes, that's what the industry is. The first esports career lesson should be, how do you make money off of esports? You could have the first 10 episodes just about that, and you would be doing a great service to people.
You started off, I guess, with those what'd you call them?
Audio commentaries.
Okay. And then, so it's 2000. By the way, how old are you?
I'm 30. 30 years old.
Okay. Trying to make a little timeline in my head.
Good. Make the timeline.
So 2005, 15 years old, you're making these live recordings.
Squeaky voice kid talking about orc strategy. It's great.
So you were pretty much the of your time. You were the Minecraft YouTuber of 2005.
Oh yeah, and it was so interesting because it used to be a different place for a teenage little shitbag on the internet. Like, it really was different. Now they have power. Yeah, you guys don't realize the Fortnite kids have power. They control what's popular. They're on TikTok. You're not. Like you don't get flamed. They flame you. Right? Completely different world. But when I was on the internet as a kid, the internet was a place for adult men. That's it. The internet was a place for engineers, for software people, for the Something Awful forums where like adults talked about the most vile things on the planet, right? So the very notion of the esports consumer in the West compared to what it was to what it is so vastly different. When people think gaming and people think the internet, they think just a different world. And it's funny how different the power dynamics were. Nowadays, everyone cares about their Twitter followers and like their clout. And it's just so funny because the earliest ages of the internet would mock that relentlessly, right? Because they were all just a bunch of adults. But here we are.
The internet culture has definitely taken a turn since 2005.
Yeah. It's a young man's game. I'm always stepping out of the way. And by the way, I'm extremely young in any sense of the word for any industry. The only reason I'm talking like this old man on my hill here is because esports is that youth centric, and esports player peaks when they're 18. they're 18, 17, they're peaked, right? Like the people who make money as a player, they're so young. So we got into this when we were young people. Most people get into this when they're 14, or at least that's how it used to be. Now it's different. Now people get into this because they want to be entertaining. They want to be a YouTuber. They want to be a streamer. No, back in the day, the only reason you got into this is because you wanted to be the best at video games. So that in itself has changed. And honestly, the career advice, if you want to get really meta, how to get a job in esports, know who your boss is. Know who is the person that's hiring you. Understand where they come from. Understand that they're looking for a team member. So if you're at odds with them, if you don't understand their core value, their core mission, you won't get hired. And most of the young people that come across my desk to try to get a job just have no concept of esports history or anything, and they have no concept of what went wrong, what went right, how people made money, how people lost money. They just don't know any of it. So they come and they just have no idea what to do. They say, oh, I have so much passion, and look, I want to create, and they think that's all it takes, and they don't get jobs. Man, it's tough to work in the industry because there's not enough spots. That's really what it comes down to. It's the same thing with Hollywood. Like, it's a popular, cool industry. So you better have a relentless spirit and lots of energy, and you better be okay when someone says no. It's just the reality of it. If this industry was selling paint, I wouldn't give that advice. I'd say just take it easy, find a good, mellow place. We don't have to work hard, get a good salary. Yeah, if you're in the medical field, sure. But if you're trying to get a job in esports, I don't know, constantly do anything and everything you can do to get a job and bring money. The only people that work in esports, I promise you, if you have a job in esports and you've been doing it for more than 4 years, you have brought money to some company. You have made money off of esports. So you need to learn how to do that constantly. There is no comfy job in esports. The only comfy jobs in esports are currently the giant pillars that are falling. All of the big media companies that don't know anything about esports are reporting, so they're dying left and right. All of the Overwatch League teams that spent $20 million, it's these companies had no idea what they were doing when they formed, and they had no idea what they were getting into when they got into esports, so now they're going away. Those are the cushy jobs that paid way too much and was always operating off inflated esports numbers. Everyone knows that esports is in a bubble. It's not going to burst. It's just going to slowly deflate and then inflate again at a normal, more realistic speed.
Would you say that one of the things that a lot of people looking to get into esports have a wrong idea about is they think their passion for it is just enough? They don't feel like they need to dive deeper into learning the intricacies of esports, learning different avenues of esports careers. They just think it's
it's a lot like the stock market. It really is. The job space is very much like stocks. When people think Blizzard, right? How old are you?
22.
Yeah, so you've probably thought about working at Blizzard before, right?
Right.
Yeah, or maybe Riot.
Yep.
So there's a chance that the reason you thought about working there is when you were growing up, those stocks, so to speak, were at an all-time high. Blizzard could do no wrong. They were the greatest company in the world, and Riot was just the coolest company in the world too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, people don't want to work at Blizzard, right? They just don't. They don't want to work at Blizzard because it's I don't know, it's not a very good place to work, and they know that it's just, why would you want to work there? They don't even pay very well. You would think, right? They make so much money. No, they don't pay well at all. If you get a job at Blizzard and you're young, you're going to be stuck at this really lame pay bracket for quite some time. And look at what's happening to their company, right? Look at the people they hired. There was just a bunch of fans and a bunch of people who were so desperate to work that they didn't actually think, is this a good job? So those people just wanted the fandom. And that's why so many people, I think, don't get jobs in esports, because the only reason they're interested is because they were there when the stock was good, right? They were there when things were nice, when it sounded like the coolest job in the world to work in esports and gaming. They were there during the golden years of gaming. But the people who actually work in esports are the ones who survived the dark ages, are the ones who survived the Halos, the MLG, that failed operation, right? Like the people have been doing this. So when people try to get jobs, they think this is new because it's been newly introduced to them. So they think, so they scoff at what? 4 years experience? How do you expect me? It's not for you. That job's not for you. You think esports is a new industry? No, there are people with 8 years experience managing an esports brand, and they're looking for work, So one of the biggest things that people need to realize is that like the myth of an entry level job doesn't exist. That was like a myth that like The Office sold an entire generation of like high schoolers and college kids, that there are companies where, oh, you know nothing, you're useless, sure, you get a job and now you have some decent semblance of living. No, this is not how it works at all, especially if you're trying to get into something, a niche like esports. Nowadays, if you're trying to work on the internet, in gaming, in culture, it's the Wild West out here. You better have built something. You better have done something. What have you done? When the moment that you realized YouTube was a place that you could upload things, were you uploading things? Were you making content? Because there are people who have been doing this for that long, right? There are people who have been doing this the moment these things became available. So I guess what I'm saying is like, yeah, people don't get jobs in esports because they underestimate how much work it is. They underestimate this is a real career. This is like a big boy career, right? Like it's a big industry because there's so much money in it now. And it's even worse now. There's so much money into it. So now, unfortunately, even though all these young esports people, their heart's in the right place because they love esports. They love it. They truly do. I think their ideas would help a lot. Those people don't get the opportunities because they lack the corporate experience. And if I'm going to hire 2 people and one person has esports passion and then like the other one has esports, but they've been doing it for 8 years, I'm going to hire the person with the most experience because, it's a job. So I think, yeah, that would be a big piece of advice.
I mean, people can learn and understand esports and, develop some sort of a passion, but if they have that, if they've worked in another field and they have that experience to transition over, that's way more valuable than somebody who just watched esports for 10 years,
Not a chance would I have the career that I have now if I hadn't worked in film. 100%. My career in the film industry is what makes my career in esports. Because in a group of esports people, very few people know how to just produce something. It's there. It's you. You have your cell phone. Make something happen. Can you make a tournament happen in 40 minutes, right? Like, I'm not trying to say that's something I can do, but it's something I could conceive. I could fathom it. I could be like, yeah, okay. All right. I know who to talk to. I know what you need. And that's because that's the like realities in film. I just took what I knew. I could do this, and I did it with esports. The most successful people who find jobs in esports, they're so hungry that esports isn't, this is the only thing I love and the only thing I'm good at. Esports is, well, I know I'm a skilled designer, but I would rather work in a field I love than for, I don't know, any other company that would hire me because my skills are like amazing. We're at that level in esports hiring. Why would you not hire someone who's brilliant? And I think that gets a lot of people discouraged because, well, I'm fresh out of college. I don't have time to be brilliant, or I can't go to college. I actually don't think that's true at all. I think everyone has a skill. Everyone has something they're good at, but not many people know how to make money with that skill.
All right.
And I think people have to realize that, like, I mean, shoot, my skill, what I'm good at doing is so useless in so many industries. I could do so little in so many, like, I don't know, restaurant industry. I could do so little for, I don't know, the sciences. I could do so little for anything involving mathematics, right? I don't even touch that stuff. I don't even touch it. I specialize in the thing that I love, the thing that I'm good at. And then I found work within esports. I think the problem that happens sometimes is like people buy into the whole dream. I have a dream, right? This is my dream. I'm going to do it. And it's like, are you really just searching for yourself? And you're trying to find yourself through a career? Because that's a bad idea. Most people I know with successful, happy jobs in esports, they've mastered a skill or a craft, and they love gaming. That's it. They didn't chase it until they were blue in the face. The whole time they were just being like professional adults with jobs. And if they did want to go the freelance route, which I've done, I've been a freelance writer, they worked their ass off constantly. I mean, it used to be a running joke when I was a writer that I always had my laptop with me, and all of the photos with me and friends, I was always writing. I was always writing some news story. There would be days where I would put out 4 pieces of news a day. And, if you think about that in terms of weeks, there'd be days I put out 40, 50 pieces of content, especially if it's, like really heavy days. So like a lot of people, first of all, don't realize how much work there is to be done. And a lot of people don't realize how hard other people are working. So if you come to that, some job interview, I'd like to be the so-and-so. And it's like, you have no idea the amount of passion some people bring and the amount of hard work and skills they bring. And they're barely even asking to get paid anything. That's the sad thing too.
So you did some stuff in film, and that's helped you get a career in esports or
Yep.
do what you do, right? Is that what you went to school for?
Yeah, so I went to school for poetry because I love writing and I love poems. And then I switched over to film because I realized, poems, you really can't make much money with poems. That was a good education, right? I went from probably the most selfless art, because that my true self, I feel like that is a part of me, to the most greedy, monolithic art that is film. And I think I really wanted to see both sides in my education. So when I came to film, I was very happy to enter rooms filled with industrious, busy people who, when they failed, it was because they didn't make enough money, not because I didn't feel like that, or my poem that, it was a very different change of pace. And I loved that. I loved the busyness of it all. And that is me. I know myself. I don't need a career or anything to tell me that I like doing, I like acting, I like being a busy person. So my esports career, it's not as if I was searching for myself. I then just became a busy gamer, and then a busy writer, and then a busy games writer, and then a busy esports writer, and then a busy esports producer, and then now I'm a director, and now I make events, and now I put on tournaments. You see what I mean? I'm just a busy person. I could have done this in any industry. And I think that's what a lot of people, they miss, right? Not everyone is busy like me. Some people are skilled or very focused, or some people are very personable, or some people are very careful. Well, great. Esports needs careful people, and we need personable people, and we need creative people. But you got to find you. You got to find what you are good at. What do you bring? Don't try to pretend like you're someone you're not. Don't try to pretend you're the personable this guy if you're not. Don't try to pretend you're the creative girl if you're not. Find what you are good at, and then say, how can I help esports? That's how you really join any industry. And honestly, this is probably advice for just any sort of aspiration, because you're not going to do it by yourself. You can't do this by yourself. Esports is a collaborative art, just like film. I think that's why I did so well here, because esports needs the players, but also the film guys and the streamers and the commentators and the artists. So I was used to working with complex teams of creative people. But a lot of people, I guess, in summation, they forget to find themselves. They forget to find what they're good at, and instead they try to fit a mold of esports. And they end up lost because esports has no mold. We literally do whatever we want. That's what esports has always been. Just people doing whatever they want, streamers doing whatever they want, so it's a tough racket for the student or the job seeker, because I get it. You're in this place where all you want is stability. You don't want to go out on your own. You already did that with college. That was already the decision to go out on your own and spend money. Now you're supposed to do it again to find your career. Didn't you want this degree to be worth something? I get it. I've been there. But the one thing that college should teach you is that this class is as valuable as the work you put into it, right? Everyone knows that class in college they regret slacking off in, because now that they're out of college, they're like, man, it would have been great to learn about that and have all those people there to help me. And I could have ask them anything and it was their job to listen to me. God, when you're out of school, you realize that it's no one's job to help you. No one cares. No one cares. It also helps in school. I was very active. I was a very active student. I was the president of our film association, and I was a paraprofessional for our sustainability league, and I was an RA, and I did all these. I was very involved. I always wanted to put on things, and I would put on film festivals. So I was very busy. I was a very active person. So I think that also lended itself to the esports spirit of we're all just trying to make this out of shoehorns and gum, right? Like, we're not an expensive industry. Most people have experience putting on tournaments from dimes and like $20 bills. We get the inexperience when someone like the Overwatch League says, you have 20 million, go nuts. It's actually, there's a lack of corporate and premium executive experience in esports, so that I can allocate that money. Oh my God, dude. These esports teams, everyone knows it's like, and it's pretty much an open secret. Any esports team within the last 4 years, they're probably running out of money right now. Right now, they're running out of money because all of their big investment, and it was all just investor dollars. It's very important. If your business runs on investor dollars, you're on a quicksand. You're not climbing a ladder. You're not building a business. You're on quicksand. That's what investment is. A lot of esports companies are on quicksand. Not many esports companies made a business out of it. I have revenue every month that I can pay employees with. How many esports companies or teams do you actually know like that? It's very rare, especially at the scope. So many people think esports is so impressive, and it's like, it's because millions of investor dollars was given to a lot of graphic designers and hype video makers, right? And like executive like events. I mean, really, what is the evidence in your mind that esports is big in the US as an esports fan consumer? What's the evidence that esports is this huge industry?
Probably that there's a lot of tournament money. You see it a lot, or you're starting to see it a lot more on TV now.
Okay, tournament money. All right. How is that money generated?
I guess it really depends on the tournament, but
yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I guess the point is, how much commerce is happening in esports? How many people part with their money? How many people pay tickets? How many people pay to watch esports broadcasting? How many people pay for esports content? How many people pay to follow people on Twitter and on Twitch? Oh, and if you want to talk Twitch subs, how many Twitch subs are just Amazon Prime? And Amazon, that's a real business. Amazon's a real business people pay for. So how much of the esports and even the streaming ecosystem is just piggybacked off a real business?
Yeah.
Right? You start realizing that, when these investor dollars run out, well, what happens when there is no Overwatch League this year? Like, what happens when there is no premium league that's spending millions of dollars on something? How many people are you going to find with millions of dollars that wanted to take that risk? Do you think they really made back their $20 million in their teams? Do you think your failed Overwatch League team, that's a game that's constantly dwindling in views, like, do you think that's ever going to make back 20 million and then some? No way. So, yeah, there's a big reality check for people trying to find jobs in esports. It's a great period if you understand this. If you understand all of this and you say, yeah, if I find a job in an esports company, it's going to be a startup mentality. I'm probably going to be a roommate with someone. It's probably going to look more like an episode of Silicon Valley than an episode of, I don't know, of Friends, right? If people have a realistic expectation of working in esports and work very hard, oh yeah, it's a fantastic sector to be in right now. Fantastic industry. There's only two things. Do you know the one thing that has benefited more from this whole COVID situation and this kind of reality check? What is the one thing that has benefited more than gaming?
I have no clue.
Online grocery stores.
Like Instacart and stuff?
Yep. So it's food and then video games. Those are the two hottest things. Those are the two hottest growing commodities. Those are what people are doing now that they can't leave. That says a lot. It says so much. It gives us a window into what this economy is going to look like in 4 to 5 years.
more ordering, more stay at home, more digitization. We're already seeing it within the conference scene. More people are enjoying having calls from their living room. Why do I have to go out in some stuffy a lobby? Why do I have to go out to some venue? Not to mention, we already have Amazon, and I think Amazon converted one of their office buildings into a homeless shelter, right? The paradigm shift is already happening, and gaming is on the rise because of it. So it is a good time to be here. You just got to realize, don't go looking for esports for like stability.
Yeah.
Bad idea.
I think I guess I never really thought about this, but you said it a bit earlier. Is I think a lot of people looking to get into esports are trying to fill certain roles instead of I guess being a role that they would fit better. Like they're trying to fit in, but they could provide so much more if they did what they were best at.
Do you know what would be the absolutely most valuable esports employee? I'm talking an accountant who really understood esports. If you were an accountant who really understood esports, you would be like an esports god. You'd be like a powerhouse in this industry, right? But no one wants those boring jobs. They want to take their esports passion and connect it somewhere else. They want to take their esports passion, and obviously they envision themselves as the commentator, the pro player, the this. No, why don't you be the director of marketing? Why don't you be the design person, right? Why don't you specialize? Why don't you understand esports as an industry? It's not a celebrity game. So many people want to be on, like, I guess the same thing happens with Hollywood, but people are a little more like realistic now. People will say, I want to work in movies. It's like, oh, what? Do you want to be a grip? Do you want to be a PA? Do you want to set up the lights? Do you want to? No. I want to be in movies. Oh, okay. You know that like of all the jobs, that's 0.01% of people get that job. But that's the job you, Mr. Unremarkable, that's what you want to do. Oh, okay. Got it. Oh, and you've never done it? Oh, got it. Oh, and you also realize there's a ruling class of actors and actresses that get their children these roles. Like, do you realize there's an entire like ecosystem of like elitism and who and hiring safe bets and hiring known, like you're also going to go up against that. A lot of people make really silly career decisions, and it's because they don't understand that you could enter Hollywood and you have a better chance of being an actor if you first joined as a data analyst, if you first joined the industry as literally anything than what you're saying. And that happens so much in esports, especially with young people, because they all want to be YouTubers. They all want to be in the limelight, when it's like, I mean, do you really? Like, what happens when you get super popular? Like, what really happens? Who wants that? You get doxxed. I was doxxed. It's not fun. It's not fun to get doxxed. Like, what really happens? I think it's why I've started to go more. There was a point in my life where I could have been like in front of the scenes, behind the scenes. Behind the scenes every day. I can say whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. I have agency, It's very, very difficult when you actually have that opportunity. And I dare say not many people are used to it. Not many people know what it's like to write something and have like millions of people read it. It actually sometimes kind of sucks. It's kind of nerve-wracking. And you're like, people will hate you. Like, that's the thing too. Are you okay with being hated? Like capital H hated? Because that happens when you're out in the public eye, and people don't realize that. They just see all of the affirmation they think they can get. And then of course these people end up becoming the most desperate. That's for another podcast. Don't get me started about how people misunderstand social media, misunderstand likes, all of this. One like economy lesson, and you would understand that putting your stake, your time into likes is beyond a fool's goal. It's the most foolish goal. But anyways, different topic. Don't worry. I'm very confusing when I talk. I was bouncing back a million different things. They all ended up being cohesive in some way, I hope.
Yeah. So you did film throughout, or I guess you transitioned to film. And you got into writing after that, to esports writing after that. What's that path look like?
So the thing is, you just always do it. I was always I was doing all things at all times. So I was writing while I was filming. I was filming while I was writing. I was competing. It all happened all at once. I don't know how other people do their careers, but that's how I do mine. I chase everything at once, and whichever gives me the most money, I put my focus on that. So I've never not done film. I've never not done writing. I've never not. These are just things I do. And I think it's because I had a job once. Oh, here's what you're asking, I think, or I think at the very deep root of what you're asking. I had a job once, and it was editing. And I would edit for the studio house, and that's all. I would just edit their stuff. Mindless, put on these big headphones. No one talked to me. I didn't talk to anyone. I was just this editor. And the only thing I would be, if I did my job better and I edited super fast and super good, guess what my reward would be? More stuff to edit, because obviously I'm the best editor, right? It was soulless. It was horrible. And I did it for 2 years because it paid well. And, you have a job right out of college. And all of a sudden you realize that you don't ever want to be doing something you don't like for work, ever. You just don't. It's a very bad idea. Someone who is career minded should put that as their number one biggest fear. And you should be running away from that at all times. That's my big advice. Every day you spend doing something you hate, you need to think, this is my life. This is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. This is it. You need to grow a fear of doing something you hate. Because in my opinion, it's the only way to truly run in the opposite direction with the force needed to chase your dreams. In order to do what you like, you have to be confident in what you're doing. You have to be confident that what you're doing is correct and you like it. You need to be coming at things righteously. Do you know what I mean by that? You got to do things with a righteous spirit. Like if I'm writing this article, it's because it's the truth. It's because it's correct. It's because I'm good at this. It's because I like this and I'm getting paid for it. And you ought to read it because it's good. That's a righteous mindset. If you come into work every day, that's what you truly believe, you're good. But if you come into this, oh, God, I got to write this thing and I hate it. Oh, when's it going to be over? Okay, boss has 3 articles. It's so boring. How do I do this? You want that every day? Doesn't matter if you're surviving. Doesn't matter if you're doing a good. You want that? That's your anxious life? That's the thing you want to be doing all day? No, you don't. So I think the people who find jobs like mine, we're both lucky, but we're also so fearful of living a mundane, boring job that we have forced ourselves to take the sacrifices. And that's the other thing too, bro. Like, I'll be real with you. You're asking this line of questioning that's like, oh, how did you get that? How did you get that? Like, the answer is not pretty. The answer is not pretty. Craigslist? Have you ever done Craigslist work?
I have not.
There you go, buddy. Why not? I have. I've done tons of Craigslist work because when I was chasing the esports dream, it wasn't paying. I have worked in the desert of Arizona. I have worked in the mountains. I have just labor, human labor. I have hurt myself so many times, burnt my skin. Man, the hardest jobs. I have so much construction work, so much just menial stuff. I once was climbing a mountain because I had to bring this director his cappuccino machine. Sounds like something you made up, but I had to do it. And I had to bring the little table too. It's insane. But I had to work those jobs. Any job I could get, I would literally do anything. And that's what would keep the lights on as I wrote about patch notes and wrote about the meta. And I interviewed pro players and all of that, right? That's what it took for me to succeed in esports. People want to pretend like it's somehow easier. And it's just not. People see the Blizzard and the Sheen, and I hate Blizzard for what they did with their whole Blizzard intern life. What a sham, man. You just sell this lie that it's this like Harry Potter-esque thing. You get an internship at Blizzard and your life's made. No, it's not. You're the lowest paid employee of a company. You have zero power, zero influence on anything, or barely any upwards mobility. And you can't actually change the things because think about it. The people who made Blizzard, they're not just going to give power over to you. You're not going to be able to do anything. So your young ideas, your love of esports, that's not going to get realized. Why do you think Blizzard right now is in the decline and every single one of their executive leadership that anyone liked has left? Because what's left is just a bunch of people who want to consolidate their power. They don't want to change, and that's why they've been on the decline. So those are the type of jobs that people think are dream jobs, and they're not, Meanwhile, they're going to college because that's what they think is out there. They think they could be this intern. They think they can be safe in this company. Yeah, Blizzard laid off like 100 people on Christmas, right? Like Blizzard just canceled an esports scene on the fly after promising people they'd have jobs. These aren't your friends. These companies aren't your friends. And what, they hire 200? And how many of these fans have dreams to work in them? It's very sad. So people think it's easy, and it's not. It's not easy at all. You need to want this more than anything. And that sounds so cliche, but it's so true. And like, if that's not the mindset you're in, find a different industry and find a job you love, and find an industry that is okay with you taking some days off. Find an industry and the thing is, I've been on so many panels and I've gotten flack for this. Oh, that's grind culture. Why are you promoting grind culture? That's bad for anxiety. It's bad for doing so. People should have lives. Yes, I agree. I agree completely. I would love it if I could pay every single employee with benefits and they could all get dental, and I could love it if they could take sick days off and I could give parental leave and all that. Yeah, of course. But esports is so small business in many ways. And not to mention the people who do have tons of money. Like I said, this is investor money. These aren't people who want to settle deep roots into esports and create this infrastructure to hire you. These are people who want a quick turnaround and they want their money back. And the moment esports isn't profitable, these are the people who invested in cannabis. It's not, it's the same type of like investor market. Esports was this speculative market. So yeah, you're not going to get someone to pay you for some internship but you will in other jobs. There are Hollywood studios. There are other companies that, yes, you come right out of college, they'll pay you and they'll teach you and you'll learn how to work in a business and how the economy works and how to make money. And then you would take those skills over to esports. That's fine. You don't need to join esports immediately. When people think, oh, I have to do it while I'm young, I have to get it while I'm young. That's only because that's what you've seen. You think that it's this rush. It's totally not. Most people in esports are desperate for just a job that pays, full stop. And these are people who are older than most people looking for jobs and have more like experience. So I don't know. Your work is cut out for you if you're trying to find a job in esports the easy way, the safe way. There's way with steps. There is no steps. Find something you're good at, chase it. I just got off a panel talking with these 4 people who have all made it in esports, and each and every one of them started their own thing. They just started their own thing. So that's what I would really suggest. Find something you love, start your own thing. My whole career started off a blog I made that I never let die because I knew I wanted to be a writer and I wanted to be a content creator.
So be able to create something that you have your name on, that you're proud to put your word behind, and that you think innovates the space in some way, right?
Yep. You need to bring value. That's the easiest thing. Bring value. Right?
And it goes for anything, any sort of job, anywhere, right?
Of course, yeah. But let me ask you a question. I'm going to put you on the spot, right? Like, how do you bring esports value? How do you bring value to like an esports company? Like, what's the first thing you need to know in order to answer that question?
I guess what have I done in the past? What have I created in the past? Nope. You need to go farther back. What does the company need? What does the company need? Yeah.
Right. And so many people don't know what the esports industry needs. They don't even know where the money comes from. They think that there's just this cornucopia called video games, and it's such a profitable thing that money just falls from the money tree and lands into the esports pool. And look, now a prize pool exists. Like people don't even know how they're going to get paid. People talk about getting paid working esports. Okay, you have a salary because you bring money in. So how are you going to bring money to this esports company? God, if someone could answer that question, if that's the first thing they did in like an interview, I'd be the most impressed person ever, because they would show that they understand the esports industry. They've done the due diligence. They know my company. They have some sort of sense to understand my company's biggest problems, wants, and needs. And they've already thought about how they're going to make sure they're an outstanding hire. I'm not only going to solve those needs, but I'm going to make us money this way that you haven't even thought of. Bam. Now you're someone who has ideas. That's what it is. How are you going to make this company money? People are so used to envisioning these megacorps that, like what's me making the company $4,000 if I work at Google, right? Or if I work at Apple, or if I work at Boeing. People are so sold on this safe thing because college was an investment, and I get a return on my investment, right? Wrong. College isn't an investment. It's education. Did you learn something? Good, because you're about to apply it. When you get that job, you better make this company money, or else what was your college degree for? People don't view their education that way. So you get a bunch of unqualified esports workers. And trust me, I've hired tons of them. It's a bad look.
Are these like, so you said you've had like a lot of esports hires who have just like not been anything. Is this like what you would have wanted to tell them, like advice you would have given them before, or if?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So here's a great question. Advice I would give to the esports newbie. Think about how silly it would be if a bread maker, and I'm just saying this is now a job, sure, a bread maker showed up to work and they didn't know how to make bread, right? That's really obvious. And you'd be like, this person has no business working here, right? That's how you should approach your job. When you get hired for a job, or if you want to do a job, there should be no question marks about what it is you're doing at all. And if there is question marks, so many people think, oh man, that means I can't do it. No, that's not how you search for a job. You search for a job by looking at jobs and then finding the one that makes your heart happy. Wow, wouldn't that be cool? Doesn't that sound exciting? Then you put the job thing down and you learn how to do it. That's how you get a job. And it's like, for some reason, people forgot that. People thought that the way to get a job is you just go to some university and you learn about whatever the hell you want. You're not even thinking about what you're going to do. You just learn about something. And now you have this piece of paper and this general vague sense of knowledge. And your job it is to find the job that loosely is what I know what to do. Like, I'm going to trick a bunch of companies because I'm so desperate for a job that I'm really good at this and I really care about this. And I just think that's just the worst thing a young person could do. I think a young person should realize that you are young, you are filled with energy. You have so many people that care about your safety, so many people that care about your well-being, that are taking care of you, that are providing for you, that are helping you out. Now is the time to learn to do that thing you love. Not when you're by yourself, not when you're already out alone and you have to have that a horrible job. You have to have that a crappy job just to survive. No, you want to be learning it what it is right now. So that would be my advice. Stop viewing jobs as this scary thing that you're either approved for or denied, and start viewing jobs as thing you can seize and take. What do you want to be? A producer? All right. Do a YouTube video, how to produce. What do you want to be? A designer? Okay. Better learn how to design, and then I better start designing things, and then I better start uploading the things I design to www.imadesigner.com, and then before you know it, who the hell can say I'm not one, right? That's what you need to start doing. And people in general don't do that because they're just looking for someone to say, here is your job. You've been a good boy. You've been a good girl. Here are your good boy points, because the American education system doesn't create real workers. It just creates little academia bots who can show up to the room and say, where do I sit? What do I do? When is it due? You know how many people that have gotten by my usual sharp nose for who to hire, and it turns out they're actually expecting me to give them a list of things to do each day. Like, that's it. They literally expect a list of things to do. They expect a list of tasks. And it's like, oh yeah, because that's what you were taught to do. Like, you never learned how to just assess a problem and solve it. And there are so many people within the job market right there that are in that space, and it's exhausting to manage. And most of the time those people get replaced, or they rely on the meeting so badly that they can't work in spaces that are mostly digital. Like people like that rely so badly on showing up to an office and being told in the like morning meeting, this is what we're doing today. In many cases, you don't have that in esports or when you're a content creator. You don't have someone just telling you what to do. I'm sure you've experienced this yourself. Even putting on this podcast, no one's telling you what to do. This is your thing, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, how hard could you be working on this? How hard are you working on this? What if this was for your job? What if I told you, listen, I need you to make an esports career podcast. Could you work on this 9 to 5, 5 days a week? What would that even look like for you? Right? If you can't answer those questions, you really shouldn't be looking for a job within that field. And yet it happens all the time. So now the employer hired someone because they have a desperate need, but they actually end up just teaching that person. And then you say, well, I could just be doing this myself. And then that person doesn't get they don't get a promotion, they don't get raises, and then they quickly get replaced. It's sad but true. Oh, and here's some more general advice. If you make the person who hired you, if you make their job easier, you will always find work. You will never be fired, and you will pretty much always do well if you make the person who hired you's job very easy. There's some practical career advice as well. A job search is not, please take me. You should be just as picky about, do I want to be with this company? Because how do I feel working here? Part of why I love my job and Inven Global so much is we are a company that is firmly based off the best idea wins. That's it. If you have the best idea, you win. Then it's your show. If you want to take lead, you're the guy. If you want to do something, then it's all yours. We have some very impactful women in our company who have done such fantastic initiatives that most people would say are a hard thing in esports to have, like women-led panels, women-led tournaments. But our employees have done it because our culture is, hey, if you have an idea, do it. Prove us why that's the best idea. Then all right. That's why I work for this company. And the moment that stopped being the case, I'd leave. And I think a lot of people need to realize that your career is a representation of you. You should enjoy it. And you know what? Also, too, I will say on Twitter, I have received some flack for this because people say, oh, well, Nick, you don't realize the advantages you have, lower income, they can't afford to work and not be paid. How do you expect? I get it, right? You're right. It's not fair. I never said that it's fair. I said it's competitive. And all that I'm saying to me is, well, what happened to the guy with lag or to the player who doesn't have a good PC? Yeah, they're probably not going to get first on the ladder because their PC sucks and they always lag out. Like, you're right. They have disadvantages. And I think people need to start realizing that if you have a disadvantage, your job isn't to complain so much that the disadvantage goes away. Your job is to work so hard the disadvantage doesn't exist. And I know of that firsthand. I used to have a horrible, horrible stutter. I could barely speak. I could literally not string a sentence together, and it would make public speaking a nightmare. All growing up, this was my life, right? But I've always wanted to be a public speaker. I knew I had good ideas. I love being on stage. I'm naturally comfortable on stage. Why can't I do this? I felt cursed. But I just kept working and kept working. And every chance I got, I spoke on stage. Every chance I got, I did stand-up comedy. I did open mic nights. I would act, anything to get me talking in front of crowds. I don't know how it happened, but my stutter went away. When it didn't go away. That's one of the things about stuttering. You always have it. It's in my brain at all times. But I've learned to control it and manage it. And now I speak for a living. I get paid to speak. So, I wasn't sitting there complaining about my disadvantage and saying, why is this not fair? I just found a way to get by. And I think that's what every single employer can respect. And that's the type of people that people want to hire, especially in markets like esports.
Yeah, I think this was maybe 2 or 3 months ago, but
Yep.
I think I saw a thread on Twitter talking exactly about that, about people, about the expectation of volunteer work in esports, and
Yep.
and people were talking, and you might have been a part of that thread, I don't know.
Probably.
But I think that's just kind of like how like it is competitive. Like you got to play the cards you're dealt, you know, like you got to make it work somehow if you want it, right?
Yeah, because the industry is reality. Maybe I've learned that from Hollywood, so it's easy for me to, like, I don't know, see everything in a dollars and cents. Like, there's a reason most every major big action movie has some sort of plot device in Beijing or some sort of scene that somehow has the characters visiting China, is because that allows them to not only market the movie in China, but use that in their marketing materials in China, in their imagery, on their box art. It allows the movie to have a backdrop that immediately makes it accessible to Chinese audiences. So like that just makes sense to me. Like there's nothing bad about that. But a lot of people have a really hard time understanding the cutthroat nature of trying to make money. And yet they want these jobs in these industries. They want these jobs in esports. They want these jobs in content, and they want to have a platform and all this, but they so dearly lack the understanding of how the industry works, and they're proven to be ineffectual at joining that industry or changing that industry because of it. So the people that actually change the industry are the ones that can be pretty unsympathetic about what it takes to survive. And, those are the people that eventually make it.
Yeah. So currently you're the director of strategic content, or corporate strategy, or is that two? Do you do two roles?
Yeah. So that's your, that's not your fault. I think maybe somewhere it's written director of strategic content. That was my title. And then I changed to corporate strategy. So now I'm the director of corporate strategy.
So you've grown into that role, right? What else have you done at Inven?
I actually made up that role. That's my title.
Okay.
I said that this is what I want to be, which is, again, it's proof to what I truly believe about careers. There is no label for what I want to do in a company. Well, if there's not a label, then I would request one. This is what I can do for you. So what corporate strategy is what are we doing at the executive, at the hiring, at the investment, at the long-term strategic planning of this company to make it a success? What are our quarterly plans? What are we thinking about 4 or 5 years in the future? What are we trying to accomplish here? That is the strategy that I lead. And that is the strategy that I deploy, taking all factors into consideration, taking the industry, the corporate landscape, other companies, our capabilities, our budgets, things like a pandemic, right? I'm the one who has to try to make sense and advocate for the company.
And so that's your role right now, director of corporate strategy. What else have you done? Like you've been, how long have you been with Inven?
I've been with Inven for about 3.5 years, but I've had all sorts of titles. I guess my first title in esports was just a reporter, because I just reported. It's different. And then I was a games writer because I wrote strategy. And
for
then
Gosu Gamers.
Yeah, so I wrote for Gosu Gamers. At the time, they were the number one Warcraft 3 site. That was my number one game, so I wanted to write for them. I then started the Heroes of the Storm section and the Overwatch section. I was a part of the people who made the first Overwatch tournament. Almost all of the casters currently in Overwatch either at one point worked for me on my content team or just wanted to cast one of our tournaments. That was really fun, just kind of being a part of that scene. I did Heroes of the Storm before that, did Hearthstone before that. I definitely had a Blizzard skew for work. I actually worked for Blizzard for a while as a writer. I wrote a lot of strategy about Heroes of the Storm. Boy, do I know how to win at Heroes of the Storm. I really know how that game is played. I wrote a lot for them. I also worked some BlizzCons. That was really good, experience and how these big events go. Like I said, I had a big background in conventions and all that, so it made sense for me to do that there. And then, just throughout all that time, I think what always catapulted me is I started off as a writer because I can write and I love to write, but I only work for companies I love. I only work for companies that I believe the vision in, that I think this is a good place to work. So eventually I start getting really nosy about how things are being operated. I start getting really nosy about, could we do this better? I've noticed this problem, or I don't like the things, or why aren't we making money here? And I just start getting really nosy. And then I start asking for things. People say, well, Nick, if you care so much, you do it. Okay, that's what I'll do. I just start doing things. Every job promotion I've ever gotten is I just join in as this sleeper agent. I'm just this content creator. And then I eventually just start making things happen because who else is going to, right? And of course, that's how things happen in most jobs. In most jobs, you just start doing things, and then like eventually those things start making money for the company. And when they start making money for the company, now you have options. Now you can say, well, if I leave, this leaves with me. So, or I could be this, I could not write anymore. I could do this, I could have this job, this, and I'll do this for you. And all of a sudden people start saying, yeah, sounds good. And it sounds good because you have leverage now. You're creating money for them. Mm-hmm. The best career advice you could ever give to anyone: make money for your company. If you're someone who just drains, if your job just drains, that's all you do. Yeah, bad look. If all you do is spend money and you can't trace back how your performance and your ideas is saving money, it's very, very hard to get advancement.
Yeah, it's not a very sustainable business strategy to just drain money.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the natural selection, right?
Exactly.
And all that gig. Well, in the corporate world and in capitalism, money is the life source. So do you promote to this business's healthy living? You're all little germs in this organism called the business. Are you one of the healthy ones? Are you helping it stay healthy and vibrant, or are you a disease? Are you like bringing it down? Are you slowing it down? Do you need to get coughed up? That's literally how it works at the very base level.
I think that's really, I guess like one last question.
Yeah, let's go for it.
You pretty much answered everything I think I could have thought of. What's your most memorable experience working in esports? What sticks out the most, good or bad?
This is so funny. Good or bad? There was once a tank at Gamescom. That was weird. A German tank just rolled down the street right after the winners came out with their trophies. That was pretty metal back then. All of my best moments in esports have been when there's just a bunch of gamers surrounded by cheap monitors or PCs, and they're just playing games together. All of the worst moments in esports is defined by the industry, is defined by the money involved, the media involved, the e-clout, the audience. All of the greatest moments were just when a bunch of nerds came together and played games. So, that's probably a reality of most people in esports, but it's also, I think, some advice and a warning that you can't fall out of love with esports. You need to remember that's what it's all about. You need to remember the only reason any of this exists because playing video games, together and trying to achieve a higher level of something feels good and it feels right. And to many people, it awakens a side of them. Maybe that side is one that's confident when you're normally not. Maybe that side of you is one that's bold when you're usually not, that's risky, or maybe it's patient when you're not, right? But video games brings out the best in people, and that's what esports is about. And esports is about celebrating the best that it can bring out of just some kids. So esports gets really lame and gross when it becomes about celebrity or politics, or when it becomes about scandal, or when it comes about trolling, or when it becomes just about entertainment. Because there's a lot of entertaining things you can do with games. You can be mean to people, you can be hurtful to people, you can bring people down, you could disrespect the people who made the game, and all sorts of stuff. Or you can just have fun and spread joy and spread excellence through gaming. I think that's really what it comes down to. So you need to remember that, and you need to remember why it is I'm attracted to this industry. That would be the best memory and my best wish for future esports generations.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'd like to give another big thanks to Nick for coming on today. He has a lot of really great esports experience, and he really dropped just a lot of great information today. So I hope you guys got as much out of it as I did. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. Make sure you guys tune in next week, where we'll talk with special guest Ashley Dinktosh, Director of UCLA Esports and Brand Ambassador for Evil Geniuses. For any updates regarding the Esports Careers Podcast, follow me on Twitter at DweebGG. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you next time.